He sleeps on a park bench. He owns nothing but a backpack. And yet he's worth over $20 million. No bank account, no mansion, no car. Just secrets, secrets he learned the hard way. They call him the richest homeless man in the world. But how did he get here? And why does he refuse to leave? His name is Bill, or at least that's what they called him back when he had a life. Now he goes by the name Christopher. Nobody knows why he changed his name. It wasn't like he was running from the law or something. He just showed up one day and said his name was Christopher, and that was that. He wakes up every morning before the sun and immediately goes to the bathroom at the nearby Starbucks. After that, he takes a seat on his usual bench and waits for the day to begin. When the sun rises, he opens his backpack and studies a map. He then picks a direction and starts walking. It might sound random, but there's a method to his madness. He never walks in circles, and he never goes anywhere twice. He also never asks for money. If he wants something, he buys it. People see him walking around the city with his backpack, and some might think he's just another crazy homeless person. But they couldn't be more wrong. Christopher doesn't beg for change because he doesn't need to. He's incredibly rich, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him. You see, Christopher isn't your typical billionaire. He doesn't own a house, a car, or even a toothbrush. In fact, he owns nothing but the clothes on his back and the contents of his backpack. But that backpack is worth millions. Christopher has managed to turn a few $100s into a multi-million-dollar fortune with no formal education or work experience. So how did he do it? And more importantly, where did all his money go? Well, it all started when he was a young boy growing up in New York City. His father left his mother when he was just a baby, so it was just the two of them against the world. Despite the odds, his mother managed to raise him into an honest and intelligent young man. Even though she didn't have much money, she made sure he got a good education and always taught him the importance of honesty and integrity. She told him stories about how the world worked and what it took to make it in life. She talked about the importance of having a good work ethic and being honest with yourself and others. From a young age, Bill knew that if he wanted anything in life, he would have to work hard for it. While other kids were out playing video games, Bill was at home studying and trying to figure out how the world worked. He was always curious about how things worked and spent hours reading books about business and investing. As he grew older, he started applying what he learned in the books to real-life situations and began making small investments here and there. At the same time, he was working hard to get good grades and earn scholarships so he could afford to go to college. Eventually, his hard work paid off. He graduated from university with honors and landed a job at a prestigious Wall Street firm. After a few years, he was promoted to vice president and given responsibility for managing billions of dollars in assets. He excelled at his job and quickly became one of the youngest and most successful investment bankers in the country. At the same time, he continued investing in real estate and stocks, and his net worth began to grow rapidly. But despite all his success, Bill never forgot his roots. He never forgot the struggles he and his mother endured while he was growing up, and he never became arrogant or entitled. He remained humble and grounded, and always tried to help those less fortunate than himself. He donated millions of dollars to charities and foundations that helped underprivileged children, and he personally mentored many young people who were trying to follow in his footsteps. Then suddenly, everything changed. One day, without warning, Bill was arrested and charged with insider trading and fraud. The government accused him of using confidential information to make massive profits in the stock market, and they were determined to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. Bill was shocked and devastated. He had never done anything wrong in his life, and he was certain he would be able to prove his innocence. However, he soon learned that the government had a lot of evidence against him and that it would be very difficult to clear his name. In the end, Bill decided to cut his losses and plead guilty to a lesser charge. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay a multi-million-dollar fine. To make matters worse, all his investments were liquidated to pay the fine, and his net worth plummeted from billions to just a few $100s. When he was released from prison, he was a changed man. He was no longer the confident and charismatic billionaire. Instead, he was a broken and disillusioned man who had lost everything. At first, he tried to rebuild his life. He got a job working for a small company and began renting a cheap apartment. But it wasn't the same. He felt like a failure and couldn't understand why he had been so successful only to lose it all in the end. One day, he ran into an old friend who was shocked to see how far he had fallen. His friend offered to lend him some money so he could get back on his feet, but Bill refused. He didn't want to be a burden and was determined to make it on his own. Instead, he took the money he had and started investing in penny stocks. He was hoping to make a quick buck so he could get out of his apartment and start living a more normal life. But it was a risky strategy and it didn't pay off. He lost all the money he had and ended up back on the streets. He was homeless and penniless, and no one wanted to help him. He had no choice but to rely on the kindness of strangers for food and shelter. But despite all his hardships, Bill never gave up. He knew that he was smarter than those who had imprisoned him, and he was determined to make a comeback. He began reading books about financial markets and investing, and he soon came up with a new plan. This time, he was going to do things differently. He was going to use his knowledge and experience to make a fortune from scratch. With nothing to lose, Bill began buying penny stocks and flipping them for a profit. He was good at it and soon had a few $1,000s in his pocket. Then he started buying shares in small companies and turning them around. He became known as a corporate raider and made millions doing it. However, he was still living on the streets and didn't have any money to call his own. So he started donating large sums of money to charities and foundations anonymously. He was hoping that if he gave enough money away, someone would eventually find out who he was and help him get back on his feet. But it didn't work. No one ever connected the dots, and Bill remained a mystery. Frustrated and desperate, he decided to go all in. He put all his money into one last gamble, buying shares in a struggling airline company. It was a risky move, but it paid off. The company turned around and became one of the most profitable airlines in the world. Bill's net worth skyrocketed, and he became the richest man in the world. But he still didn't have a home or a place to call his own. So he started donating huge sums of money to charities that helped the homeless. He was hoping that they would put him up in a hotel or something, but they didn't. They just kept asking for more and more money. He became the biggest donor to all these charities, but none of them offered him a place to stay. It was at this point that he realized that he had made a terrible mistake. You see, Bill had become so obsessed with making money and getting revenge on the government that he had forgotten about the things that really mattered in life. He had neglected his relationships and had become a virtual recluse. Now that he was finally rich again, he realized that it didn't matter if he didn't have anyone to share it with. That's when he met a woman named Sarah. She was a social worker who was trying to help the homeless, and she was the only person who didn't ask Bill for money. She saw past his rough exterior and recognized the pain he was hiding. She befriended him and offered him a shoulder to cry on. As they spent time together, Bill began to open up to her and shared his story. Sarah was shocked to learn that Bill was once a successful businessman who had lost everything. She saw the intelligence and compassion in him and knew that he wasn't a bad person. As their friendship grew, Bill began to fall in love with Sarah. He realized that she was the kind of woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, but he was too afraid to tell her the truth. He was ashamed of who he had become and didn't think she would accept him if she knew his real identity. So Bill continued to live a double life. On the outside, he was the mysterious homeless man who everyone knew as Christopher. But on the inside, he was still the same Bill he had always been. He continued to donate money to charities and help those in need, all while hiding his face behind a pair of sunglasses and a baseball cap. As time went on, Bill became more and more withdrawn and isolated. He was afraid that if anyone found out his true identity, they would try to take advantage of him. So he avoided people and spent most of his time alone. One day, however, his secret was revealed. A reporter who had been following Bill's story was able to uncover his true identity and published an article about it. Overnight, Bill became famous. People wanted to know more about the mysterious homeless man and what had become of him. TV shows and magazines ran stories about him, and he was interviewed by everyone from local news stations to national talk show hosts. Bill was horrified. He had worked so hard to keep his identity a secret, and now it was all over the media. He tried to disappear, but it was impossible. People wanted to know why he had become homeless and what had happened to him after he was released from prison. He couldn't hide anymore and eventually agreed to do an interview with a reporter he liked. The article was honest and compassionate, and it helped people understand why Bill had become homeless. It painted a picture of a man who had lost everything and was trying to pick up the pieces. After the article was published, people began to rally around Bill. Charities and foundations reached out offering him help. People donated money to help him get back on his feet, and businesses offered him jobs. Finally, Bill had the support he needed to rebuild his life. He used the money he received to buy a modest home in a quiet neighborhood. He also took a job working for a small company where he was able to use his skills and experience to help others. He became a mentor and advisor to the young people who worked there and was able to guide them in their careers. In his free time, he volunteered at local soup kitchens and shelters, helping the less fortunate. As time passed, Bill began to heal and move on with his life. He had found peace and contentment and was grateful for the second chance he had been given. He had learned that material possessions and status didn't matter as much as the people you love and the contributions you make to the world. Bill was happy with his new life. He had come to terms with his past and was looking forward to the future. He had learned that the true measure of success wasn't how much money you made or how much fame you had, but how much you were able to help others. Bill had become the richest homeless man in the world, not because he had more money than anyone else, but because he had more compassion and empathy. He had taken his misfortune and turned it into an opportunity to make a positive impact on the world. And that was something that no amount of money or status could buy. He was finally at peace with himself and his life and was ready to move on. Bill knew that he was lucky to be alive and had a lot to be thankful for. He had survived a difficult childhood, overcome tremendous obstacles, and become a successful businessman. He had made mistakes and suffered the consequences, but he had learned from them and come out stronger on the other side. Bill was grateful for the second chance he had been given and was determined to make the most of it. He knew that he had the ability to make a difference in the world and was excited to see what the future had in store for him. Bill was truly the richest homeless man in the world. He had more wisdom, more strength, and more compassion than anyone else. And he knew that those were the things that really mattered in life. He had come full circle and was ready to embrace the next chapter of his journey. Bill was hopeful and optimistic about the future. He knew that he had a lot to offer the world and was eager to get started. He was excited to see what adventures awaited him and what challenges he would overcome. Bill was ready for anything. He had faced adversity head-on and had come out victorious time and time again. He knew that he had the ability to handle whatever life threw at him and was excited to see what the future brought. What will happen to Bill next? Will he continue to help others, or will he go back to his old ways? Find out in part 2.